Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're doing things a little differently. We're tackling the world of software engineering.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic these days.
It really is. And specifically, we're going to try to answer a question we get a lot, which is, are coding boot camps really like, I don't know, the golden ticket to a software engineering career? We've got some really interesting articles and insights from some seasoned developers, and honestly, I'm excited to dig into this with you.
Yeah, I think the perspective we've got for this deep dive is really unique. We're hearing directly from developers who've actually worked with, boot camp grads. So it's like we have that inside scoop on what boot camps teach you and what often gets missed, which can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah, right. And that's what we want to uncover, like what are those blind spots? So one developer said something that really jumped out at me. They estimated that something like 90% of boot camp grads that they'd encountered lacked some really, really crucial, fundamental programming knowledge. 90%. That's huge. Is that something you've come across?
It's a bold statement for sure.
Yeah.
But it does, highlight, I think, a common observation, I guess, among a lot of people who are working in the industry. I think, to put it into perspective, boot camps are often under a lot of pressure to get their students job ready quickly.
Right.
Which can sometimes mean that they prioritize speed over, that really deep dive into the fundamentals.
Yeah. It's like learning a few phrases in a new language, right? Like you can get by, you can order a coffee, maybe ask for directions.
Right.
You might feel fluent, but could you write a novel? Probably not.
Exactly. And that's actually, this developer used the analogy of a language barrier. So bootcamp grads might feel fluent in code, but they often lack that deeper grammatical understanding, those core programming concepts that allow someone to write really effective, really elegant programs.
It's like, I don't know, understanding the difference between like simple present tense and present perfect continuous. Right. You can get by without it, but to really master the language,
you need to have that foundational knowledge. Yeah.
And it's not just about writing code that works, right? Yeah. It's about writing code that's clean and efficient and scalable. And this is where I think, from what I'm gathering, that like hidden curriculum comes in. The stuff that top tier companies are really looking for that you might not be explicitly taught in a boot camp environment.
Absolutely. And this hidden curriculum is all about those unspoken skills and knowledge, right? Like things like truly understanding algorithms and data structures, being able to write code that's clean and maintainable, having a good grasp of design patterns. These are the things that really separate, the good from the great. The developers who can, build a basic website versus those who can architect like complex systems.
So it's like the difference between building a house on sand versus building it on solid bedrock. The house on the sand might look okay for a while, but
right, it's not going to stand the test of time.
It's not going to last.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When the storms come. And this developer actually gave a really interesting example, talking about for loops, right? So they were saying many bootcamp grads will say, oh yeah, I understand for loops, but their knowledge is often limited to, very basic iteration. And so when they're hit with a task that's even slightly more challenging, it's like they hit a wall.
Right.
It's like someone just showed you how to use a hammer to drive in a nail.
Right.
But they didn't teach you all the other things you could do with a hammer, the more complex carpentry tasks.
Exactly. And that's where, that deeper understanding of those fundamental concepts comes into play.
Right.
Knowing how to use a for loop for, basic iteration is one thing, but understanding its full potential, how it can be used to optimize algorithms, how it can be used to work with, complex data structures, that's where that real mastery lies.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to being a software engineer than just being able to say, build a basic website.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Building a basic website is a great starting point. But to really, I think, thrive in this field, you need to go beyond just those surface level skills. You need to delve into the underlying principles.
So where do boot camps kind of fit into this whole picture then? Because it sounds like they're not the be all and end all. So what purpose do they serve?
That's a great question. And it's important, I think, to be realistic about what a boot camp can offer. I think they can be incredibly valuable, especially for, career changers.
Yeah.
It gives them that initial taste of coding. It introduces them to some of the basic tools.
Okay.
And it can help you kind of figure out if this is a field you're truly passionate about. So it's a fantastic springboard.
Okay. So it gives you that initial push, but it doesn't necessarily equip you with everything you need for the long haul.
Precisely. To thrive long term, you need to go beyond, the boot camp curriculum and really invest in a deeper understanding of those fundamental concepts that we've been talking about that might not have been covered as extensively.
So it's like that first flight of stairs.
Yeah.
But there's a whole staircase to climb if you want to reach the top.
And that's, I think, where having that long-term perspective is so important, right? You need to be thinking about this as building a career, not just finding a job.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating to me, right? It's not just about learning to code. It's about understanding what it takes to build a lasting and fulfilling career, in this case in software.
Yeah, and it's about asking yourself those bigger questions too, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of company culture do I thrive in? What kind of impact do I want to make? Am I willing to, embrace lifelong learning?
Yeah.
And constantly adapt as, the tech landscape changes.
Because let's be real, the tech world moves fast.
Oh, yeah.
What's hot today is obsolete tomorrow.
That's the thing. And that's why having that strong foundation in the fundamentals is crucial. Because it allows you to adapt.
Right.
It allows you to learn new languages. It allows you to embrace new technologies. It future-proofs your career in this industry that's constantly changing. Think about building a strong core in fitness. A strong core benefits you in every other activity that you do.
Right. It's all connected. It makes a lot of sense. You need that solid base to build upon.
Exactly. It's about building a strong foundation that will support you no matter what challenges or opportunities come your way.
So to sum it all up, it really sounds like it comes down to, setting realistic expectations,
right,
understanding your goals, and being honest with yourself about the commitment that you're willing to make. A boot camp can be a fantastic starting point, but it's just that it's a starting point.
You got it. It's about approaching this whole journey into the world of software engineering with both, enthusiasm, but also like a healthy dose of realism, or understanding that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right. And that the real learning, that deep dive, begins once you've stepped off that initial springboard.
I love that. This has been incredibly insightful. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, talking about the importance of elegance and efficiency in coding.
Yeah.
And I think it would be great to really unpack that because, we were talking about it being so highly valued, especially in these, top tier tech companies.
Yeah.
It's about more than just making the code look pretty, right?
That's a great question. And it's something that definitely deserves its own deep dive, because you're right. It's about much more than just aesthetics.
So we're talking about elegance and efficiency in coding and why these qualities are so highly valued, especially in those top tier tech companies. It's about more than just making the code look pretty, right?
You're absolutely right. It's about crafting code that is not only functional, but also kind of a joy to work with, both for yourself and for others who might be collaborating with you on a project. Yeah. Think of it like this. You walk into a kitchen and you see a chef who's got ingredients scattered everywhere, pots and pans overflowing, and a general sense of chaos, right? And then you walk into another kitchen and everything is organized, spotless, and the chef moves with this quiet efficiency. Which kitchen would you rather work in?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. The organized kitchen, for sure. It just makes sense. But how does that translate to the actual code itself? Like, what makes code elegant and efficient?
Yeah, that's the heart of it, isn't it? It's about writing code that's easily readable and understandable, even when you're dealing with, really complex logic or algorithms. Imagine trying to, decipher a sentence that's just a jumbled mess of words versus one that's grammatically correct and flows smoothly.
The jumbled sentence would be a nightmare.
Exactly. And it's the same with code. Elegant code is like that well-structured sentence. It's concise, it's clear, and it gets the point across without any unnecessary complexity.
So it's about making the code as simple as possible, even when you're dealing with really complex tasks.
You got it. It's about breaking down those complex tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks of code, each with a clear purpose. Think of it like a well-organized toolbox, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be rummaging through a jumbled mess of tools when you're trying to fix something. You want each tool to have its place, labeled clearly, so you could find it quickly and efficiently.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But you mentioned efficiency too, so how does that play into all of this?
So efficiency in coding is all about writing code that performs optimally. So code that doesn't waste resources, things like processing power or memory. Think of it like this. You could write a program that takes, say, 10 minutes to process a large data set, or you could write one that does the same thing in 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely starting to see why these qualities are so important.